We're staying in our ground floor plan.dwg file, and we're going to take a look now at polar and ortho. Now, polar we've already touched on a little bit, and ortho is what they call orthographic projection, and it locks you down to the X and Y axes for drafting. Now, we've got our little table here that we created with the rectangle and the circle. We're going to replicate that, but in a different part of the drawing. So zoom out slightly and pan across. You'll see there's a nice big area to the left of where our table is here. So we're going to utilize this area here next. And we're going to take a look at drawing the same size table, but using polar and then using ortho. And then I'm going to jump back into polar and show you a neat little feature in polar that allows you to use individual angles with your polar tracking. So make sure you're on the FFE layer in the layers panel, over to the draw panel here like so, and we're going to click on polyline this time. We're going to create a 2D polyline. Come into the drawing area, it asks for a start point. Now before we start, let's jump down to the status bar. There's your polar tracking here. Just click on that flyout and make sure it's at 90. We need the 90 angle increments. Now we're going to use direct distance entry for this because it's quick and easy. So we're going to pick a point here, left click, and drag to the right. Now you'll remember this from previous videos. So we're going to type in 3500 and then enter. And there's the first part of our table. But we didn't draw the rectangle using a polyline command last time. So this time we're creating a polyline, and when we're finished, it'll be a rectangle. We're going to go vertically upwards, type in 2500, make sure that that green polar tracking kicks in. Press enter. Drag to the left, green polar tracking kicks in again at 180 degrees, 3500 and enter. Now polyline behaves in the same way as the line command. I can right click and I can select close on the contextual shortcut menu that appears. Now that closes that polyline, and if I hover over it, you'll see it's a rectangle. As you can see, it's a rectangular polyline. Now over here, you drew this with the rectangle command, but it's also a polyline. It's just a rectangular polyline utilizing 4 segments with 90-degree corners, hence a rectangle. So that's using polar to create our rectangular polyline. What I'd like you to do now is select the rectangle you've just drawn, right-click, and erase it. And you're thinking, why is he erasing what we've just drawn? Because I want to show you a different way of creating exactly the same rectangle, but using ortho instead of polar. Come down to the status bar. There's polar tracking there. Ortho is this one. It's a little right angle symbol. Click on it and you'll notice that polar automatically turns off. You cannot run polar at the same time as ortho and vice versa. So we've got ortho switched on now. Let's go back to that polyline command here on the draw panel. I'll pick a similar point as last time for the start point, left click. Now as I drag, you'll notice I can only go horizontally and vertically. Notice I cannot go off at any other angle. That's orthogonal projection. You can only do horizontal or vertical, X and Y axes. So this is actually quite a good method of drawing regular shapes. So as I drag now to the right, I can type in 3500, direct distance entry again, but I can only go horizontally. So when I press enter, it's got to be a horizontal line. I now go vertically upwards, 2500, enter. I come back along to the left, 3500, enter. And again, it's just a right click and a close on the shortcut menu. We've got exactly the same rectangular polyline. Hover over it. It's a closed polyline. There we go. But I've used a totally different method to draw it. So you can use polar, which gives you a lot more flexibility with angles. Ortho ties you down to vertical and horizontal only. Let's go back to the status bar. We'll click on polar now. Notice ortho turns off. So we're now back to where we were with our polar tracking. Now we're going to go down to polar tracking and right click on the polar tracking icon and go to tracking settings. That'll open up the drafting settings dialog with the polar tracking tab current. So polar tracking's on, our increment angle is 90 degrees. Now you can add additional angles. If I click on that little box there and click on new, I'm going to put an angle in of 67 degrees and press enter. Now this is a one-off. It'll only work with 67 degrees, not multiples of 67 degrees. So any of these here on the increment angles, it will be multiples of these angles. This one, it will be the one incidence of 67 degrees, that one there. Click on OK. And now, if I go to the line command, and I use this endpoint snap here and left click, there's my line. Now, polar tracking kicks in when I go horizontally. Can you see that? Multiples of 90 degrees. But as I come up a little bit, watch that angle on the dynamic input. When I get near 67, there you go, there's my 67 degree there. As I move away, it then goes back to the 90. So if I go to 67 again and say I want a line that's, I don't know, 1500, and I press enter to confirm, and then enter again, that line there is 1500 long, and it's 67 degrees from the horizontal, rotating counterclockwise, because counterclockwise is the default angle direction in AutoCAD. So you can have individual angles in that polar tracking, which is what makes it so much more versatile than, say, orthographic, the ortho, the orthogonal setting. Ortho is great for regular shapes. Anything irregular or free flow, I would go with the polar tracking. Jump back down to your polar tracking, right click, go to tracking settings, just click here on your 67 and hit delete. We don't need that one anymore, and click on OK. We can then click on the line here, right click, and we'll erase that line as well. So that's using polar and ortho in your AutoCAD drawings.